G'day, welcome to Maxi Chats. In this episode, we sit down and have a brew with Garth Callender. Garth is a ripping story, one of the first casualties, Australian casualties in Iraq. He's now the CEO of Bravery Trust. We really enjoyed this chat. Hope you do too. Ladies and gentlemen, Maxi Chats here with Garth Callender. Garth, can you share one personal, one professional, and one peculiar fact about yourself?
Sure. So personal, I'm the proud father of 3 daughters. Professional, so I run Bravery Trust, the veteran charity. And peculiar fact, hey, we're talking about defence industry. In 2006, I was in Iraq working out of a compound. Over the back fence was the old Ba'ath Party headquarters where the Saddam Hussein trial was going on throughout pretty much the entire 6 months I was there.
Fascinating. Can you tell us 2 truths and 1 lie, please?
Yeah. So I said I got 3 daughters. I'm actually the only male in my household, including the dog. I just came 4th in the Kira Longboard Classic, the surfing competition. Probably important to say for the defence and veteran category, so not the actual full competition. And I am planning on winning that competition next year.
Well, interesting. Which one is the lie there? Garth, RM Williams or Blundstones? Which one and why?
I'm wearing RMs today. There are all those old guys who say the only shoes you need are a black pair of RMs and a brown pair of RMs. Sadly, I feel like that's me these days.
That's you.
And Blunnies are more work shoes. I'm a bit of a runner, so I have this rotation of old running shoes, which I use for working around the garden.
Garth, what are 3 things we're likely to find you doing after work?
Driving my children around to football training, surfing where I can, and then I'm doing lead-up training for this year's Bravery Trek.
What are your top 3 weekend rituals or hobbies?
Driving children around to sporting events, tinkering on motorbikes, and more training for this year's Bravery Trek.
Garth, tell us a bit more about your background and your current position as CEO of Bravery Trust.
Yeah, so I've got a defence background, and honestly, I never thought that I'd be working full-time in the veteran space. This is now the 2nd full-time role I've taken on in the veteran space, but it's something which is very dear to my heart. I love the work that Bravery Trust does, and it's a way of paying back.
Can you tell us, what does actually Bravery Trust do? What does it aim to solve in the defence veteran space?
Yeah, we work squarely in the finance space, so assisting veterans and current serving at risk of financial hardship through financial education and capability building, assisting those actually in financial crisis through immediate financial support, and then assisting those who carry significant debt, so working with them to advocate to creditors to manage that debt on their behalf. So that's all about getting people back on their feet, back to financial prosperity, and at the same time linking them with all the other great support organisations, whether it's government or veteran organisations, that they need beyond the finance space.
On that point, government and defence, really important stakeholders for Bravery Trust.
They are.
Tell us how they help you or how they support your organisation.
Honestly, defence has been great, and if you go back to the beginning of Bravery Trust, we're actually stood up from funding from the Department of Defence. We've now got a great relationship from both sides of the house. We've got Richard Miles and Matt Keogh turning up to an event of ours next week, and along with Andrew Hastie, and then Phil Thompson. Not only is he the assistant shadow defence minister, he's also an ambassador for Bravery Trust.
Garth, tell us about a defence leader, either in industry or uniform, who's inspired you the most and why.
It's a tough question, because I think defence is so great about nurturing and growing fantastic leaders. But I've got to go back to Roger Noble, retired Major General Roger Noble. He was one of my first COs when I was a troop leader. I got quite badly injured my first deployment overseas. In a broader picture, that's what got me into working for Bravery Trust. But to your specific question, he came and visited me in hospital after I'd been repatriated back to Australia, and in classic Roger Noble fashion, I was there in bed, with a swollen head out here with sort of holes all through me, feeling sorry for myself. He turned up, said some really nice things, but also brought a present for me, which was a copy of Anthony Beevor's Stalingrad.
Yes.
I think in his classic way, it was him saying, "Hey mate, things probably don't look so bright right now, but have a read of this, you'll see that it could be far worse."
Let's talk about the incident that day and what you have learned from that rehabilitation or support from your community.
I was incredibly lucky. Like right from that time that bomb went off, I had 25 Australian soldiers around me who did everything. So all that training, all that professionalism came together that day. Protecting me from an angry, quite volatile crowd, providing me with first aid, while also sort of managing the injuries for the locals as well, which significant injuries and deaths from that IED strike, all the way through to getting me to hospital. And I had some pretty serious injuries, which could have taken my life if they hadn't got me to hospital so quickly.
How's that experience helped you in your current role?
Well, it led me to my current role. I mean, I look at that bunch of guys, that bunch of soldiers now, and say, of that group, a vast majority, sort of a good 20 of them, have gone on, done great stuff, have processed that event, have moved on. But of that, so we lost Matt 9 years ago to young onset dementia, which has been linked back to that same incident. There's a couple of guys who are hospitalised off and on and will probably never really get over that incident. And then a couple of guys that have good days and bad days. So I feel like my role in Bravery Trust is for those two groups. One, celebrating service and showing, that even through trauma, but regardless, people get incredible experiences, training, skills out of defence, while also making sure that smaller group who have a negative experience through defence are supported.
Let's now sort of touch on defence capability. You know firsthand how important defence capability is, but you are an armoured corps officer, ex-officer. Yep. Talk to us about 3 defence capabilities you've heard about or that you'd love to see Australia acquire.
My brain's in the veteran support space, so that's where I think, and that's where I think actually there's a place in there back in defence capability. I guess sort of philosophically, I'd love defence to shift its focus a little bit and understand that not everyone is going to go through all the way through to retirement. Not everyone's going to be Chief of Army. Not everyone's going to be RSM Army or equivalents. So it would be building capability for those within defence, particularly in my role with Bravery Trust. Building financial capability before people move on would be superb. I would love to see more work in the transition space, particularly those medically discharged who we know are at higher risk. And then getting back to I think, the crux of your question, there is so much incredible tech out there, which is happening. I have worked in the tech commercialisation space, and I'd love to see some of that really smart tech be developed for the benefit of the defence of the country.
Okay, Garth, what's one of the toughest professional decisions you've ever had to make?
There's been a few, and they've always been in war zones where there's been an ethical element to them, an ethical dilemma. I do talk about this a lot, even back to defence people, in regards to the fact that war zones are about as complex as an environment as you're going to get to, where the right answer can be really difficult to land on. Like I said, there's been a couple, but yeah, definitely from war zones, and they've all involved decisions whether to take life or not take life.
Garth, defence industry, defence, it's a serious business, but do we take ourselves too seriously? Aussie soldiers that you've worked with, do they know how to have a laugh? Is it true that defence industry folks have no sense of humour?
I think that's probably true. No. Your middle point there, absolutely, Australian soldiers know how to have a laugh. And actually, it's one of those things I feel very strongly about, which is, we need to do everything right as an organisation, but I do get worried sometimes that we're losing the larrikinism in our Defence Force, and I feel really strongly that is part of the core of who we are. Whether that's ex-serving, I think humour is a fantastic coping mechanism, just as much as anything else. And I know in some of the most darkest situations I've been in, the humour has been incredibly valuable. Defence industry, we often have an extremely serious job. In fact, it's not true to say often. There are times when we have an extremely serious job. Probably the most serious you can be, whether it's a military person in uniform making those key decisions, or whether it's defence industry making decisions on how we best protect our warfighters. But that's not all the time. And there is always a place beyond those parameters for humour.
Garth, last question. If you could spend a day inside any defence capability or with any global defence force, which would it be and what would you want to learn?
I've been very privileged. I still throw on uniform occasionally, and I've had the privilege of instructing down at Staff College for the remote course down there. So it's not specifically the capability you're after that I would spend with, but spending time in syndicate rooms with a group of up and coming senior leaders in defence is my happy place. And anyone who's nervous about the future of our Defence Force just needs to go and have a look at those up and coming, enthusiastic, extremely intelligent leaders coming through. What I learned from them, what don't you learn from them? Tri-service environment with the very best in their cohort. Incredible situation, learning off each other, and having the privilege of sitting in the back or running the syndicate discussions, learning so much yourself.
Garth Callender, CEO Bravery Trust, thank you for your time.
Maxi, thank you.